Welcome back. In this video I'm starting to lay out the mortise and tenon joints to connect the stretchers to the legs. Going to be cutting them with my plunge router. I have a 1/2 inch upcut spiral bit in here, and to make things repeatable I'm going to make a template. I have a collet in the base of the router. I'm going to make a template in here the right size for the mortise so that all I have to do is locate it on each of the legs and then just follow the template. That plunge bit only goes down just under an inch by the time you account for the template and the base of the router. So this will get me a repeatable location and nice crisp shoulders, and then I'll go in with a Forstner bit on a drill and increase the depth for the tenon size that I want. So I've decided I'm going to have a 1.5 inch shoulder on this side and a 3/4 inch shoulder on the top. I'm going to go with a 1 inch tenon. I originally thought about going 1.5 inches and making it the full width of the center piece of the lamination. But that's really kind of overkill. I started watching a bunch of other videos of people who were building Rubo workbenches and whatnot, and they were going, as low as 3/4 of an inch on their connecting tenons, and that's apparently considered to be strong enough. So 1 inch should make easy work with the router and just kind of simplify things for me a bit. The length of my tenon, I'm going to make 4 3/4. The reason I picked 4 3/4 is because if I take 3/4 of an inch off the top and the bottom equally, it actually made 4 15/32 because of the dimension of the wood that I ended up with after planing, and 4 3/4 is just a whole lot easier. So what I'm going to do is cut this cheek here, and then I'm going to cut the top one, since these are dimensions that are going to be the same on every piece, and then I will kind of sneak up on the other two sides with the dado until they fit just right. Now I don't really need these marks in this piece of wood. I'm just doing this to kind of lay out to show where it's going to go and to wrap my head around it before I start cutting anything. And I need to now transfer where this is to a template. And the template will be slightly oversized from this for the collet, and then I'll just, as I said earlier, have it clamped onto here, and then I'll follow it around and it'll be repeatable on all the legs. And then I can just, with those two dimensions set there, I can flip it over for the other side and it'll be correct for the stretcher coming out the other way. Here you can see I have the 1/2 inch upcut spiral bit in here, but it is within, depending on exactly where I line it up, within about 4/1000ths of an inch to 5/1000ths of an inch within 1/2 inch. You can see the collet on it is 3/4 of an inch, which means that I need to make the hole in the template 1/8 of an inch bigger on either side. So instead of 1.5 inches in from the edge of the template, I need to make it 1 3/8 of an inch in. And then instead of 2.5, I need to make it 2 5/8 on the other side. And then the same for the top and the bottom of the mortise. Instead of 3/4 here, I'll come up 1/8 of an inch and make it 5/8 inch. Instead of 4 3/4, we will make it 4 7/8. So now if I cut out this template and align it to this corner, then it should give me this mortise. So I decided on a pure and complete whim to attempt to cut this out with a coping saw. This is my unhealthy coping mechanism. So I had initially considered doing this with the jigsaw, of course, but This is so floppy and thin that I'm worried my jigsaw is just going to make a mess of it. And this should cut through pretty cleanly. So I took a rough file and I kind of just went in here and smoothed out the cuts left from the coping saw, and I'm happy with it except for, if I can get the camera to focus, right there was a void in the plywood that broke out, and it's got a little bit of a dip in it, and it's not going to really hold up well for a template. So I decided that would be the perfect opportunity to try out this stuff. It's a thick gap filler from Starbond. Starbond actually sent me some glue to try out, so this seemed like a good opportunity to do it. This isn't actually the first time that I've used any of the glue that they sent me. Last week I used some of the medium glue to fix a rubber pig ear that my daughter had broken off. Most of the time that I'm using super glue, it's for repairing some kind of a toy that she broke. Dad life. So I'm going to put this down in here and see how well it fills this gap. If you're unfamiliar with the CA accelerators, this stuff makes it dry in just a couple of seconds. Well, I think that was probably a little bit bigger gap than they really intended this product to be used to fill. But it did the job. Starbond Thick Gap Filler gets my official thumbs up for filling voids in your 1/4-inch plywood templates. Discount code in the description. Alright, so I've got the template lined up flush with the top and side of my piece. Just held on here with a parallel clamp. I just put this one down here so that they'd be equal and it wouldn't rock. Got a little scrap of wood under here. Just for stability, and you can see how it's just 1/8 of an inch wider than the hole that needs to be cut. And now if I can get this to focus, we will get the plunge router and make a little test cut, make sure it's where we want, and then cut to our full depth. Alright, so I got all of the mortises cut out in the top pieces. You can see I even oriented them all correctly. I kept them standing here kind of roughly the way they would be once assembled, so that I could make sure I was cutting them all in the right spots and kind of keep everything in order. And next it's time to cut the ones down on the bottom for the lower stretchers. Alright, so you can see I've already kind of laid out on here where the bottom mortise is going to go. For a little bit of trial and error, long story short, what I'm going to do is set my combination square to 4 inches and just reference it off the bottom, and then run the template right up to that. So that will give me 4 inches clearance under the bottom stretcher, plus 3/4 of an inch of total shoulder on here, and then the tenon located exactly as far in as it was up here because, you know, it's the same template. Just wanted to stop and take a second to show you a mistake I almost made. So if you try to do something like this with templates that you won't make the same mistake, I almost cut this on the wrong side. That would have been bad. Would have been recoverable, but it would have been a whole lot more work to try to fix that. They both need to be on the same side, so make sure that when you're switching faces, you flip the template over accordingly. rigid. Four out of four, that's my best side yet. So the next part of it is going to be the trickier glue up. I can't just put in one at a time and get them completely installed because I don't want to be able to spread it apart and put the other mortise and tenons in. So I think what I'm going to do is put in these two sides, get them glued, drawboard, you get the dowels put in there, and then do the other side, get that done. Once those are in, they should be clamped from the dowels, and I will not need to have any clamps on them. And then I can come over to the other side, do the other four, and kind of put this entire end on it, like a big end cap.
In Mike Farrington's videos, he always likes to mention a song that he's been listening to or thinks is appropriate for the build he's doing. And I think right here, Texas Flood by Stevie Ray Vaughan is probably the most appropriate one I can think of. I started pounding in these dowels here and I was having difficulty getting it to go all the way in. The sound was off. It was really kind of sounding like it was bottoming out already. And I couldn't figure out what was going on since obviously I had drilled the holes through the tenons. I mean, I don't know what could possibly be going on here. I have no idea. It's, it seems like it's in, it's lined up fine. I'm still solid because the holes in the I forgot to drill the holes in the tenons.
found it. If you were wondering, I weighed all these pieces individually before I glued it all together, and the bench actually only ended up being 217 pounds, which is quite a bit less than I was expecting, especially from having to lug all this wood around so many times. So, yeah, I imagine it'll get a bit heavier once I get another 3 or 4 sheets of plywood and tools and everything in there. Well, that is a wrap for this episode. Got all of the pieces glued together. I still have a couple of dowels that I need to make on this side because I got to gluing this top piece on here and realized I only had 5 dowels and I needed 8 to put it on. So I'll get that taken care of. In the next episode, I will get some plywood and some MDF and start making the torsion box top to go on here and start getting some plywood in the bottom of this thing and put some sides in it, and we will see where that goes. So I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.